one core-worthy UFA that we selected, Marina Mabrey. I think for me, she has something that you can't coach, which is fierce competitive nature.
Okay, we officially have our rosters for the Toronto Tempo and the Portland Fire, selected on April 3rd, 2026. Now, the Chicago Sky did trade a pick to the Fire and swap picks with Toronto to stay out of the expansion draft entirely, which I still find the most interesting because I have no idea who they were protecting with that move. Now, ESPN and the W left us completely underwhelmed with the expansion draft, literally with one of the graphics even having the Lakers logo behind it. But nonetheless, they went through with this draft with half the league having no logical reason to protect or select, with free agency just around the corner, making the Bridget Carleton and Marina Mabrey picks all the more interesting. Both unrestricted free agents can hear offers from any team, sign with any team, but the Fire and Tempo respectively are the only teams that can offer them a supermax contract. That's pretty much all they have the rights to at this point. So let's look at the Fire first. With the first pick in the draft overall and their first pick in franchise history, they selected Bridget Carleton. Now, we know she's a free agent, but she also removed the links from her Instagram page about a week ago, so we know those backroom conversations were happening, as they should be. All agents should be on the phone yesterday. Now, Carleton is a 6'2 forward, 28 now, again coming from the Minnesota Lynx. She averaged just under 7 points and 4 rebounds last season, been in the league since 2019, so they must have liked what they've seen from her just over the last season or two. And this pick was even a little funny because Carleton is from Canada. They'll build the rest of their roster with her in mind, especially considering there are a lot of reserve players, but some sprinkled in active players like Carla Leite coming over from the Golden State Valkyries. 6'9 guard from France, did play last season again for Golden State, averaging about 7 points per game. She's been in the league since 2024, but we saw some bright spots from her in the 2025 season, and she was even Euro Cup Women's Final MVP, so they know there's some talent there, and that's an active contract they picked up there with Carla Leite. So looking at the first 5 picks that they selected, the next 3 are reserves, but they're playing in the league. Luisa Geiselsöder was their next pickup, again a reserve contract, but an excellent center. From Germany, the last team she played on was the Dallas Wings, but she was selected in the 2020 draft. 6'4", averaging about 7 points a game and just under 5 rebounds a game. For who was on the board, I think this is an excellent pickup for the Fire and a great way for Geiselsöder to get to show what she can do on a new team that's probably giving her that starting center position if she wants it. Then we go on to Emily Engstler, another reserve contract from the Washington Mystics. The great thing about this pickup is she is a bit of a tweener as far as that 3-4 position. So I think this is excellent for their starting 5. A 6'1 forward, she's been in the league since 2022. After being selected 4th in the 2022 draft, she was bounced around a little bit, starting with the Fever. So this is another player that will be given a chance to really flourish. Show us what you got. Make a name and be a statement on this team. It looks like they're giving you the opportunity to do so. And with their next pick, the Fire picked up Maya Caldwell, a 5'11 guard who's been in the league since 2021, and after being a 3rd round pick is a solid guard. I think this rounds out their starting 5 very well. Now you can play with this roster and see what works through free agency and the collegiate draft. But in the minutes she did get with the Dream, she was very impressive. When she was on the floor, you knew she was there. So I think this is a great pickup for the Fire and a great opportunity for Caldwell. Next, the Fire picked up Chloe Bibby. And out of all of the picks, as far as my predictions, this is one of my favorites. I think Chloe Bibby is a great pickup, a sleeper in what's possible. Everyone can ball, and a lot of players are going to surprise us just with the minutes that they get. But even again, looking at this team and her being selected 6th, that's an excellent 6th player off the bench. 6'2 forward, Polish League MVP in 2024. She wasn't drafted out of college, but she did get a chance with the Indiana Fever. So again, I think this is a great opportunity for Bibby and a good pickup for the Fire. Now, knowing what the rest rest of their roster looks like it was interesting here for them to pick up Haley Jones. Now, if we're looking at the overall roster, they've already picked their starting 5, their 6 players, so now you're looking at your backups and who's further down the bench. So Haley Jones being a guard coming off the bench, that's an excellent look. Drafted 6th overall in 2023, so she's got a little bit of experience here and looking to have a breakout season like a lot of other players. She got a little room to flourish on the wings, but playing behind Arike Gumbiwale couldn't have been easy. Once you add Paige Beckers to that roster, she was probably struggling for real playing time. Alright, and still making sure they have some great backups. You got Nyadiew Puoch coming from Australia. She was actually drafted in 2024. She just hasn't made it to the WNBA as of yet. Most of these reserve contracts work like this, but she is supposed to join the Fire, so she has a great training camp. This is someone who could battle for that starting position. So I think this is one of those pickups for them where the upside is worth it if she pans out. Now, they did go and get an active contract. They picked up Sarah Ashlee Barker from the LA Sparks. 6-foot guard. She's been in the league just a year now. Drafted number 9 overall in the 2025 draft. So on the Sparks, you are playing behind some heavy hitters. And once they picked up Plum, she was going to be fighting for minutes here. So I think where they selected her is interesting, but being an active contract, she could see more playing time, having a great training camp. All right, and then they picked up Sug Sutton, again, a little further down in the draft, but being a restricted free agent, unless they had some great backroom conversations, she's going to see what she's worth on the market. She had a really good offseason in Unrivaled, so depending on what the market looks like for a 5'8" guard with her skill set, she could end up being the Veronica Burton of this team, surprising, even the franchise in what she's capable of doing, given an open runway. And then with their last pick, they picked up Nika Muhl. I'm not surprised she was available. This is another player where the upside is worth it if she works out. She's had some unfortunate off seasons over the last few years. She missed a season tearing her right ACL. She's going to miss the next season after tearing her left ACL. She was drafted 14th overall in the 2024 draft, so just outside the lottery, but such a good upside if she's able to come back healthy. And that's your Portland Fire. I think they did pretty well in this expansion draft, considering you really only had reserve players and free agents to work with. I can only imagine how the conversations went behind closed doors, but to have something to work with compared to all the other teams, now they look very similar to everybody else. 2 to 3 active roster contracts, some restricted free agent and unrestricted free agent, and a plethora of reserve contracts. And considering what their starting 5, their 6th player off the bench, and their backup players look like, the Portland Fire will be able to compete even if they don't make the playoffs. It'll be a breakout season for a handful of their players, and that should be the story moving forward. They don't want to be in no man's land like the Golden State Valkyries, making it to the playoffs, but not ending up, with franchise changing picks. So we'll see the changes they go through in free agency and after the draft and cutting players after training camp. But I can definitely see Carleton, Engstler, Sutton, Barker, Caldwell making a name for themselves on this team if given the opportunity. Okay, let's take a look at the Toronto Tempo, who started off in this draft with the 2nd pick. That was their decision. They wanted the 6th pick in the collegiate draft versus the 7th. Their first pick in their franchise's history ended up being Julie Allemand, a restricted free agent from the Los Angeles Sparks. Drafted by the Indiana Fever in the 2016 draft, she's got a lot of experience, and as a restricted free agent, if they had those conversations, this is an excellent move for Allemand, who's moved around a lot since that 2016 season, who was selected in that 2016 draft, but didn't appear for the Indiana Fever until 2020. He played for Chicago in 2022, and most recently for the Los Angeles Sparks in 2025. Okay, with their 2nd pick, the Toronto Tempo would pick up Nyara Sabally, an active contract from the New York Liberty. Sabally was drafted 5th overall in the 2022 WNBA draft and has played for New York over the last few years. Her best year being 2024, only being able to play 5 games, averaging 10 minutes. So a third string player behind Breanna Stewart. So I'm sure she's excited to be able to play on a team that's going to give her some room to grow and flourish. A 6'5" forward, I'm sure we're going to see a great season from Sabally. Again, especially being on that active contract. There's nothing to negotiate. I'm sure as long as she has a good training camp, she'll be a starter for this team. All right, and then next for the Toronto Tempo, they picked up their unrestricted free agent in Marina Mabrey. Now, this gives them exclusive rights to offer her the Supermax contract. She can still talk to any team she wants to. It's not a done deal. But they had to have some type of conversations with her or her agent to pick her up in the first place. Now this does move you to Toronto, but it would basically be her team if they strike the right deal. Along with that Supermax, beyond the Supermax, it's offering her a multi-year deal, especially with this new CBA. So depending on those contract negotiations, this would be Mabrey's team, an absolute sniper. We saw her on the Suns, Chicago, the Wings. She was drafted by the Sparks in the 2019 draft, 19th overall. So she's made a name for herself, enough to be a franchise player if she takes this opportunity, because I'm sure that's what the Tempo have in mind selecting her in the first place, even if it was their third pick in this draft. Now next they picked up another active contract in Aaliyah Nye, coming over from the Las Vegas Aces. The 6-foot guard, she plays a bit of a tweener position. You can get her between that 2 and 3 there. Selected 13th overall by the Las Vegas Aces in the 2025 draft. She played well in the minutes they gave her, especially on a championship team. In the offseason, she played for Athletes Unlimited. It was a great offseason for Nye, a good way to go into her sophomore year, especially being on the chopping block for this expansion draft. Assuming they selected their starting 5 out the gate, she has a great opportunity, again, like a lot of other players, to have a breakout season and get some minutes under her belt. She was playing almost third string on the Aces, again, a championship team. So having that chip under her belt is probably a great feeling, going and starting on a new team and possibly making a bigger name for yourself. Okay, next the Tempo picked up Lexi Held, 5'10" guard from the Phoenix Mercury. Now technically she did sign in the WNBA in 2022 with the Chicago Sky, but has since been playing overseas in Australia, Hungary, Italy, Poland, Sweden. So in 2025 she officially made the roster for the Phoenix Mercury on a reserve contract, and really I think she increased her draft stock in those minutes with the Mercury, as few as they were. So I think this is a good pickup for the Tempo and kind of sneaky for the Mercury. They got lucky with Held being so good, the Tempo would want her. So not being a part of their long-term plans, this ended up being a good pickup for Lexi Held, the Phoenix Mercury, and the Toronto Tempo. Next, the Tempo picked up Maria Conde, a reserve player the Valkyries held after they picked her up in their expansion draft from the Chicago Sky. She hasn't played in the WNBA since she was drafted in 2019, a Spanish forward. She may have played in the 2025 season, but she was recovering from an Achilles injury. So if we see her, that'll be great. This is another player where the potential upside is worth the selection, but we haven't seen her in the league since being drafted. Next, they selected Maria Kliundikova from the Minnesota Lynx, a 6'4" center selected 11th overall in the 2018 draft by the Los Angeles Sparks. Now, she barely played for them in those first couple of years, and we didn't see her again in the WNBA until the 2025 season, where she played for the Minnesota Lynx. Now, she has a lot of experience in the Euro League, obviously representing Russia in multiple FIBA competitions, so it'll just be interesting to see how they want to incorporate her into the team. If they want to have her as a starting center, do they have her in mind for that position or a backup? I don't know. Honestly, where the rest of their contracts even land, as well as the Fire did, I'm just not sure if we'll see half of the Tempo at all, let alone even on this team. Their next pick, they picked up Adja Kane from the New York Liberty. She was selected 38th overall in the 2025 draft, and we haven't seen her in the W, but she has represented France in FIBA competition. Next, they would pick up Nina Muhl, who had a pretty decent couple of seasons there with the Minnesota Lynx. Pretty well known in the Turkish Super League and the Women's Euro League. A 6'3" center. So again, if we see her, that's great. A wonderful opportunity, for a center that played down the bench a little bit, but a player where those overseas leagues will be prioritized over the WNBA. Next, they picked up Kitija Laksa, another reserve player from the Phoenix Mercury. She was drafted 11th overall by the Seattle Storm in the 2020 draft, a 6'1" small forward, so she plays the 3. She only played 5 games for Phoenix in 2025. She is a champion in the Euro League and has a FIBA Super Cup championship, so very experienced if they actually get her on the team. Again, like a lot of these other reserved players. And then lastly, the Tempo picked up Kristy Wallace, another reserve contract from the Indiana Fever, 5'11" guard, and she's won a 6th Woman of the Year award in the Australian League, picked up in the 2nd round of the 2018 draft by the Atlanta Dream. We didn't actually see her appear until the 2022 season, and then after that she played for the Indiana Fever, though we didn't see her in the 2025 season. So I don't think this was a big loss for Indiana, but again, the potential for the Tempo looks to be pretty big as she has a lot of professional experience overseas. And those are your Toronto Tempo. Again, I really like the first 5 picks. I think they started off very, very strong. And while these reserve players are ballers and definitely skilled, we just don't know if we're going to see them in the league. With the new CBA and the salary increase, it can definitely be more enticing, but a lot of these players choose to play in their home country, and that contract or getting drafted in the WNBA is more leverage and a bargaining chip to get a better deal in their home leagues. So again, this could change with the new CBA, but also knowing that has not been fully signed yet by both parties, it's still up in the air. Now, expansion drafts are fun and the fans are definitely excited, especially the watch parties, live events on YouTube, live tweeting from Blue Sky, but the WNBA ESPN definitely dropped the ball with this. First of all, we only got 30 minutes to begin with, and then they started it off like we were going to get a real draft. Drafted number 1 overall, Bridget Carleton, going to the Portland Fire. Drafted number 2 overall with the Tempo's first pick, we got Julie Allemand, and we thought we were going to get a draft, some highlights of the players, some info on what they have to offer the team, how they're building the teams, and then all of a sudden they just threw up the rosters for everyone to see, literally and figuratively. Instead of getting it piece by piece, they just threw up the roster slides and went from there. We got a few commentary pieces from some of our WNBA analysts. Monica McNutt weighed in, but it was less of an event and more of an email. Definitely disappointing for the fans that want something to get excited for with this league, but nonetheless, it was their event to run, and we have free agency to look forward to right around the corner. So while I don't know if we'll actually see these rosters as they're currently constructed, again, especially the Tempo, I think they both did great for their respective rosters, and now coming out really just looking like every other team in the league with the amount of active contracts, restricted free agents, unrestricted free agents, and reserve contracts. So hopefully they get that CBA signed and we have an exciting 2026 season.
Outside of being a long-range shot maker and someone that can facilitate and create for herself, she can also create for others.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, players.